Why is it that some people manage to stay calm, even when everything seems to be falling apart? Have you ever noticed that? While the world is shouting, they breathe. While everything around them is in turmoil, they remain whole. It's not that they don't feel, but they don't get lost in what they feel. Maybe for a moment you thought, those people must be different. Maybe they were born with some kind of emotional armor, but the truth is something else. They're not immune to pain. They're familiar with it. They don't run from chaos. They know where to take refuge within. And maybe the biggest realization is this: it's not the world that changes, it's how you relate to it. Today, I want to invite you on a journey, but not a journey outward, rather inward, a return to what's always been there, but maybe got covered up by years of reactivity, fear, hurry, or self-forgetting. Now picture the sky wide, blue, still, even when dark clouds cover it. The sky remains unchanging, vast, peaceful. The clouds are like our internal states, thoughts, emotions, memories, reactions. They come and go, they're always changing. But the sky is who you are, your essence, your steady center. True emotional freedom begins when you start living from that sky and not from the clouds passing through it. Before moving forward, I invite you to pause, to breathe, to let every word here be heard not just with your mind, but with your body, with your heart. Let this moment of listening be a shelter, a moment of truth and care for yourself. We're not here chasing perfection. We're here to remember and to experience that there is a place in you that nothing, absolutely nothing, and can shake, and that's exactly where we begin. What truly shakes us is not what happens in the world, it's what happens within us when something happens outside of us. Maybe you've noticed two people go through the exact same situation. One explodes, the other stays calm. What makes the difference? It's not the event itself. It's how that event touches the deeper layers of our being. And this is where we begin to step into the territory Jung explored so deeply, the unconscious. We live much of our lives guided by what we can't see. Memories, traumas, beliefs, unprocessed emotions. All of this makes up what Jung called the shadow, what we've rejected, repressed, or forgotten about ourselves. But that never really disappeared. On the contrary, the shadow acts. It shows up in disproportionate reactions, when a bit of criticism feels like a stab, when someone ignores us, and it triggers an old, almost childlike sense of abandonment. It's not just the present that's speaking, it's the past rising to the surface. Jung once said, "We project the shadow onto others." What we can't accept in ourselves, we start to see and judge in others, and that's how we begin to drift away from our center. We start living through a mask, the persona, the part of us shaped to be accepted, to please, to avoid rejection. But the more we identify with that mask, the more we lose touch with the self, our true, essential, deeper being. It's like forgetting the sky and living only through the clouds. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine someone who, as a child, was constantly criticized by their parents. They learned that in order to be accepted, they couldn't make mistakes. Now, as an adult, they receive constructive feedback at work, and they react with anger, or they shrink into silence. It's not the feedback that hurts, it's the old wound being touched again. The present activates the past, and their response doesn't come from awareness, it comes from autopilot. That's why emotional freedom begins with a powerful question. Are you reacting from your center or from your unresolved past? That question can change everything, because once it arises in you, you begin to reclaim the power to choose, to step out of emotional autopilot, to recognize that behind every reaction, there's a story, and that story can be seen, felt, and healed. This is the first step back to the clear sky behind the clouds, realizing that what shakes us is inside, not outside. And the good news? If it's inside, we can transform it. Now that we've started to see what wounds us, let's go deeper. Let's find, within the inner chaos, a new point of support. The one who observes, but doesn't get lost. The one who feels, but doesn't identify. Let's meet the inner observer. Imagine that within you, there is a silent space, a presence that doesn't panic in the face of pain, nor gets confused by anger. It simply observes. That presence is like the sky that remains, even when dark clouds cover everything, even when the storm seems endless. Emotions, thoughts, impulses are the clouds, but the sky doesn't react to the clouds. It simply remains, and you too can learn to remain. This capacity lives in all of us. Some call it the witness consciousness. Others call it the inner observer, presence, or simply awareness. It's the part of you that can feel sadness and still know that you're feeling sad, that can feel fear and still observe the fear. That awareness changes everything because it gives you back something precious, the freedom to choose. When you're fully identified with emotion, you get swept away. You are the anger, you are the fear, you are the jealousy. But once you begin to observe, you're no longer just the content. You become the space in which the content moves. Shall we feel that now? In a simple way, a short practice. 30 seconds of presence. If you can, close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Now, bring your attention to your breathing. Feel the air coming in. Going out, notice the thoughts that arise. Emotions, sensations, and silently say to yourself, "This is here. And I am seeing it." You don't need to fight anything or control anything, just observe. When you're ready, open your eyes gently. This practice is simple, but it's deep. It marks the beginning of a new way of living with presence. Presence is the sky. Presence is the place where everything happens, but nothing consumes you completely. It's where you can feel pain without being swallowed by it. Where a dark thought might arise, and you don't automatically believe it's true. And believe this presence can be cultivated over time. You learn not to react on impulse, not to lose yourself in automatic patterns. You create inner space between what happens and how you choose to respond. And in that space lives your strength, your freedom, your truth. When you begin to observe, reaction gives way to choice. Now that this space has begun to open, let's use it for something even deeper, to welcome what we usually avoid, difficult emotions. They are not enemies. They are messages from your own being, waiting to be heard, not suppressed. How many times have you blamed yourself for feeling too much, for crying, for no reason, for getting irritated, even though you thought you were already evolved? We were taught to fear certain emotions, to hide them, to control them, to avoid anything that makes us feel pain. But what if the problem isn't the emotions themselves, but the way we relate to them? Just like heavy clouds signal that rain is coming, difficult emotions are also signs. They're messages from the body, from the psyche, from the soul. They didn't come to get in your way. They came to warn you. Let's take a look at some of these emotions through a different lens. Fear, for example, so often condemned, but fear is a guardian. It points to where there's risk, not to paralyze you, but to protect you. When truly listened to, fear can become caution. Wisdom, anger also has a bad reputation, but it's the emotion that defends your boundaries. It's the energy that rises when something crosses a line that matters to you. When repressed, it becomes resentment. But when acknowledged, it can transform into clarity, into assertive action. And sadness, the great emotion of grief. It allows something to be released. It teaches us about letting go. about love. In sadness, there is healing, but only if you stop running from it. These emotions have deep biological roots. In the brain, it's the limbic system that processes what we feel. It reacts fast to keep us alive, but it doesn't distinguish between past and present, real or symbolic. That's why an intense emotion today is often connected to something from long ago. It lights up like a reflex, a bodily memory of pain. That's what we call trauma, and it doesn't have to be a major event. It can be subtle, like a quiet, repeated absence of support, of being heard, of emotional connection. And here lies a key to emotional freedom. What you resist persists. Carl Jung, the more you repress what you feel, the more it controls you from within. The more you run, the more it follows you. But when you face it with presence and compassion, something starts to shift. Want to try this now? Emotional holding practice. 3 simple steps. Name what you're feeling. I feel afraid. I feel sad. I feel angry. Naming it is acknowledging it. Locate it in the body. Where do you feel this emotion? In your chest, your stomach, your throat? Breathe. With compassion, place your hand on that spot and breathe, as if saying to your body, I see you, I'm here with you. This practice, simple and sincere, can shift the way you relate to yourself. You no longer have to run. You can be present with what you feel, and that's liberating. You can face your pain without running, and it transforms before your eyes. Because when you hold space for the emotion, it stops shouting. When you listen, it reveals what it's truly trying to say. And now that we've learned to listen, let's take one step further, transforming not through force, but through presence. Let's step into the realm of emotional alchemy, where lead turns to gold and pain becomes consciousness. Have you ever realized that what you fear feeling the most is exactly what most needs to be welcomed? In ancient alchemy, the masters sought to turn lead, a symbol of raw, heavy matter, into gold, the illuminated essence. But the true alchemists knew this transformation wasn't just chemical, it was psychic, spiritual. The lead of anger, fear, and pain can become gold, but not through denial, not through repression, through presence, through listening. Through conscious transformation, emotional alchemy is the path of looking at what hurts with new eyes. It's the opposite of repression. It's not about thinking positive. It's not about forcing calm when your heart is in anguish. It's more subtle, more profound. It's about creating inner space so the emotion can reveal itself and then transform. Let's go through the steps of this alchemical process. Acknowledge the emotion. Name what you're feeling with radical honesty. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't minimize it. Say to yourself, yes, this is here. Welcome it without judgment. Allow the emotion to exist without making yourself wrong for feeling it. You're not weak for being afraid. You're human. Feel it in the body. Bring your attention to where the emotion lives physically, your chest, your throat, your stomach. Breathe into it, not to make it go away, but to connect with it. Ask, what is this trying to teach me? Every emotion carries wisdom. Anxiety might be calling for presence. Sadness may be asking for rest. Anger, for boundaries. Offer a new quality. Imagine. You can breathe something new into your body. Courage, patience, compassion, trust. You're not denying what you feel. You're expanding your emotional palette. Want to try it out? Guided practice. Transforming anxiety into presence. Close your eyes for a moment. Bring to mind a recent moment when you felt anxious. Feel it. Where is it in your body? Breathe gently. No rush. Now, silently ask, what are you trying to show? Me just listen, and now take a deep breath. As you inhale, imagine your breathing presence into your chest, as if saying to yourself, it's all here, and I can handle it. One step at a time. Inhale presence. Exhale softening. Pause. When You feel ready. Gently open your eyes. This is true transmutation. It's not about not feeling anymore. It's about feeling with awareness, feeling with grounding, feeling with wisdom. The emotions you fear carry the wisdom you're searching for. Every difficult emotion is a doorway, and behind that door, there's something precious, waiting to be seen. Now that you've begun to transform, the alchemy has already started. But there's one thing that can block this process: the unconscious desire to please, to fit in, to be accepted, even at the cost of your peace. In the next step, we'll take a deeper look at this trap and discover how to free yourself with truth and authenticity. Have you ever caught yourself acting a certain way just to be accepted, saying yes when your whole body was screaming no, staying silent for fear of seeming fragile or being too strong, just so you wouldn't disappoint anyone? This is one of the greatest saboteurs of our emotional freedom, the need for external validation. We all want to be seen. We all want to be loved, recognized, welcomed. And that's not wrong. It's human. From our earliest days, our survival depended on connection with others. In ancestral times, rejection meant danger, even death. In modern times, we still associate rejection with emotional threat. But when the need to be accepted becomes constant, silent, invisible, it turns into a prison. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted. The persona isn't evil. It helps us navigate society. But when we identify too much with it, we lose contact with our center, with ourself, with who we truly are. Little by little, we start shaping ourselves to fit. We silence our pain so we won't seem negative. We suppress our anger to appear mature. We ignore our boundaries just to keep belonging. But at what cost? The cost is self-abandonment. It's living with an emptiness that never fills. It's depending constantly on someone else's gaze, as if there were someone out there with the power to approve or destroy us. Let's reflect together. How many times have you stayed silent just to be accepted? How many times did you criticize yourself inside while trying to please on the outside? How often have you stopped being who you are to become who they expected you to be? These questions sting, but they open space for something new, liberation. And how do we escape this trap? Not with sudden rebellion, but through a process, an internal reconnection. Here are some paths. Recognize your own values. What's essential to you, what guides you, even if it displeases others? Write it down, remember it, reaffirm it. Practice self-validation. Stop waiting for others to say, "You're right." Say it to yourself. "I hear me. I respect me." That's not arrogance, it's emotional integrity. Set boundaries with compassion. Saying no isn't rejection. It's protection of what's sacred in you. A true no holds more love than 1,000 fear-driven yeses. You don't need to please everyone to be loved. You just need to include yourself in your own love, because the more you recognize yourself, the less you need to be recognized. You step out of the dance of approval and into the quiet strength of self-acceptance. From there, your relationships shift. You become more whole, more truthful, more present. And the other person, they might even walk away, but you remain in peace. The more you recognize yourself, the less you need to be recognized. This is not a utopia, it's a possible state, cultivated through small choices, through internal listening, through gentle courage. And now that we've begun to release the need for approval, something begins to emerge. A new point of support. Quieter, more stable, something beyond emotion, beyond the mask, beyond fear. It's your inner center, your true home. In the next step, we'll talk about how to live anchored in this center, even when everything outside seems to collapse. It remains steady, like the sky behind all the clouds. Imagine the sky. It is always there, vast, silent, steady. The clouds pass, sometimes light, sometimes heavy, sometimes dark. But the sky remains. Your inner center is like that. It's there even when you forget, even when you get lost in emotions, in roles, in the demands of the world. This center does not depend on external achievements, isn't shaken by opinions, doesn't need to be proven, only remembered. In depth psychology, Jung called this the self, the essential self, the part of you that exists beyond the persona and beyond. The shadow. In practical spirituality, we call it conscious presence, that silent space that observes without becoming what it sees. It's the part of you that remains still through the storms because it knows they pass. It knows they are not you. But what happens? We spend so much of life identified with what changes that we forget what stays. We confuse ourselves with thoughts, emotions, labels, and end up living as if we were only the clouds, forgetting the sky. But there is a way back, and it starts with something simple: conscious pauses, moments when you stop, breathe, and ask, what's happening inside me right now? Who is observing all of this? These questions aren't rushed. They don't seek a logical answer. They are keys that open inner doors. Want to cultivate this center? Here are 3 simple and profound practices. Conscious pauses throughout the day, before reacting, before deciding, before continuing on autopilot. Pause. Take a deep breath. Return to the body. Remember the sky. Key questions. Morning and evening. In the morning, ask, who do I want to be today, regardless of what happens? At night, ask, how did I relate to myself today? Was I honest with what I felt? These aren't for judgment. They are invitations to presence. The technique of negative visualization from Stoicism. Think of something that could go wrong today, and instead of tensing, ask, if that happens, who do I choose to be in response? This isn't pessimism. It's emotional preparation. It's a reminder, even if everything falls apart, I can remain anchored. Life is uncertain. People change, emotions fluctuate, but you can cultivate within you a space that does not move. This center is not perfection. It is truth. It is presence. It is that state which says, even in silence, I am here. And that is enough. And when you begin to live from that place, you become less reactive, more lucid, more grounded. You respond instead of reacting. You stop struggling with the clouds and start looking at the sky. The emotions still come, but they don't drag you. The opinions still arrive, but they don't define you. The outer chaos may be intense, but the inner chaos begins to calm. When you live from your center, the chaos outside doesn't become chaos inside. That is the silent promise of your being, to stay with all that you are without losing yourself. Now that you've begun to inhabit this space, a new kind of freedom begins to approach. Not the illusion of controlling everything, but the real freedom of being present with everything that is, without running, without fighting, without breaking apart. That is what we'll explore next, the deepest step of this journey. When we think of freedom, we almost always imagine the opposite of prison. We imagine the absence of limits, absolute control, a life without pain. But that's a fragile kind of freedom, conditional, illusory. It depends on the world being the way we want, and when it isn't, we feel trapped again, anxious, powerless. True freedom is something else. It's not out there. It doesn't come from the absence of suffering, but from presence with it. It begins when you no longer need to run from yourself. Carl Jung said, "Make the unconscious conscious. Otherwise, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And what does it mean to make the unconscious conscious? It means looking with presence at what we'd normally avoid. It's stopping the escape from pain, insecurity, anger, fear. It's allowing everything to exist within us and without becoming any of it. Freedom is not about eliminating sadness. It's being able to feel sadness without getting lost in it. It's not about never feeling fear. It's knowing you can hold fear without letting it run your life. You've learned by now how to observe, to welcome, to transform, to return to your center. Now, it's time to integrate all of this with emotional maturity, because true freedom doesn't come from perfection, it comes from wholeness. Being whole means allowing all your parts to exist. It's knowing that even with flaws, shadows, and vulnerability, you are worthy of respect, of peace, of love. Being present with all that you are is like standing beneath an open sky, watching the clouds pass by, but knowing you are the sky. Dense clouds come, clouds of anger, sadness, anxiety. But the sky remains, and the more you anchor in that space of observation, the more you realize you don't need to fight the clouds. You only need to not mistake yourself for them. That takes courage, because staying present in the face of pain without fixing or fleeing is one of the greatest acts of freedom a person can live. You don't need all the answers. You don't need to control everything. You only need to be whole, present, and honest with yourself. Look closely. Emotional freedom is not the absence of emotion. It's the ability to move through emotions with awareness, without being swallowed, without disconnecting from your center. It's saying, I'm afraid, and still I move forward. I feel sadness, and still I can care for myself. I don't know what will happen, and that's okay. That is the space of true peace, not the peace that depends on external silence, but the one born from inner silence. When you live in that state, the world can remain unpredictable. People can keep being who they are, but you are no longer a hostage to any of it. You become a home for yourself, and that home can't be taken or destroyed, because it is you. You learn to be present with all that is, and that changes everything. Now take a deep breath. Feel in your body what resonates with this truth. You don't need to get rid of what you feel. You only need to learn to be with it, with compassion and presence. The freedom you're seeking is already here. It's just waiting for you to say, I accept being all that I am. No more running. And in doing so, you remember who you are, and no one can take that from you. In the next and final stage, we'll gather everything experienced so far, a loving synthesis of the journey and an invitation to continue this. Your path, not in haste, but with presence. Let this moment settle within you, like the earth grows still after the rain. You don't need to understand everything right now, or hold on to every concept, every word, every practice. What truly matters is what was awakened. Maybe at the beginning you came here seeking protection, from pain, from judgment, from life's instability. Maybe you wanted to become immune to criticism, to emotions, to highs and lows. But what you found was something deeper, more real. You discovered that you don't need to be made of steel, that you don't always have to be okay. That emotional freedom isn't rising above pain, but being whole within it, with clarity and compassion. You've learned to observe without getting lost, to welcome without judging yourself, to transform without forcing, to return to your center, to be present with all that you are. That's not a small thing, that's everything. And now comes the most important part, continuity, because the world will still be challenging, the storms will still come. But now, you've changed, you have a new starting point yourself. And no, that doesn't mean perfection. There will be setbacks, doubts, fears, but there will also be something that wasn't there before. Presence, awareness, kindness toward your own humanity. So, keep going with soft steadiness, with sensitive courage, with small but wholehearted steps. And if at any point you forget all of this, remember, you don't need to protect yourself from everything. You just need to learn how to come back to yourself. That is your sky. The clouds will come, but you can always return. If this message stirred something in you, share it with us in the comments. How did this journey impact you? Have you experienced something similar? Your story might help others who are also seeking a way back to themselves. If this content resonated with you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs to hear this today. This is how the message continues to echo, from heart to heart, from awareness to awareness. Thank you for being here. Until the next step of the journey.